Hello, and thank you very much for tuning in to the podcast series by the New Silk Road Project. I'm your host today, Charles Stevens, the founder of the New Silk Road Project. This series is dedicated to understanding and raising awareness of one of the most important development strategies of the 21st century, China's Belt and Road Initiative. The centerpiece of the New Silk Road Project, an initiative supported by Jeep, CSIS, Magellan Capital, the University of St Andrews and Shira, was to travel the course of the Silk Road economic belt from London to Yiwu in eastern China, interviewing the key actors and academics along its course. We will have to apologise in advance for some of the tangential moments in this podcast series, and also the variable quality of audio footage. We do hope this series sheds important light into China's growing global presence and the significant changes taking place across Eurasia. It was with a heavy heart that this marked the end of our London to Yiwu journey, a trip which had seen us cross the Eurasian supercontinent, interview the key actors and academics along its course, and visit the critical infrastructure hubs which constitute the Middle Corridor. We very much hope that you have enjoyed listening so far, but please do not go away, as we are developing exciting plans to continue interviewing the key individuals in this arena, to both raise awareness and bring understanding to the various aspects of China's Belt and Road Initiative.
I'm Vikas Saxena, and I take care of the international road and rail department in DHL China. This also includes the multimodal shipment activities that we do by combining different modes of transport like rail freight, road freight, and even sea freight.
And operating an international intermodal network obviously presents significant logistical challenges. How are you coping to combine these different modes of transport effectively?
The most important thing for this kind of business is you got to be on your toes all the time. You got to be aware of what are the demands of different types of modes, technically. Also from a legal point of view, there could be different types of legal framework that you have to adhere to. So more importantly, beyond anything, you need to be on your toes all the time. You got to be switched on. You got to be able to determine what kind of challenges await you, and then be able to find solutions for them proactively rather than deal with them when they present themselves to you. So this is one of the very important aspects of what we do in our multimodal business. And since most of this business, especially the rail freight business between China and Europe, is fairly young in comparison to the ocean freight part, which is thousands of years old, we have an extremely switched on team within our organization, a young team which understands the challenges that this business presents, and also they deal with it. So that for me is the biggest one.
And you mentioned the importance of the New Silk Road as an emerging growth area. Which mode of transport along it, maybe rail, lorry, even sea freight across the Caspian, would you see as the most viable moving forward?
Okay, talking about the sea freight first of all, I want to clarify that it's just not the transit across Caspian Sea. We are also looking at connecting Japan, Korea, Taiwan through this. And there is a big volume of business which is now flowing across the sea from between these countries and also Europe. There are a lot of customers who are looking at the sea rail option as a very great viable option for the future, because the traditional sea freight route does not offer them such a competitive and fast transit time. Whereas if you do this multimodal thing, you're able to cut down the transit time by a great margin. And also you don't have to depend on air freight limited capacity from these countries to Europe. So all in all, this works perfectly for them.
Could you elaborate a little bit more on this sea freight route from Japan and Korea, and maybe the transportation times and why it provides another suitable alternative to the land-based corridor?
Right. How it works is there is immense business as it as already it exists between China and Japan and Korea, right? So there is a great deal of capacity available, a huge number of services by ocean between these countries. So what it means is you have absolutely no problem for this short haul to connect between, let's say, a Tokyo port and Shanghai port. You got so many services that you can piggyback on. It gives you multiple connection options, and the transit time is just 3 days from Tokyo to Shanghai. So 3 days you're in Shanghai, you're able to connect to the rail terminal, and then be in Europe very fast. Whereas if you were taking the traditional ocean freight route from Tokyo to, let's say, somewhere in Central Europe, you have limited options. And most of the time you might be transshipping via places like Hong Kong or Singapore, where you might be spending more time just waiting for the next mother vessel to connect onto. So this all creates a very long transit time between these countries. Whereas this rail and sea rail option gives you a perfect opportunity to just come to China, connect by rail, go very fast to Europe, and then deliver to the consignee door in double quick time.
And you were, of course, one of the earliest players in the New Silk Road. Firstly, why was this, and what growth have you experienced over the last couple of years which you've been directly involved in it?
DHL all along, everywhere over the world, is always very conscious of how we position ourselves as a market leader. The most important thing for doing that is that you're always ahead of the game. How you develop your vision and drive the market. How you become a pioneer in everything you do. So when this Silk Road initiative was being mooted by the Chinese government, DHL was already at the forefront, looking at all the possible alternatives, looking at all the shipment modes and how we can be part of it. And for us, the advantage also is through our wide network all across the world, we are able to reach out to customers, we are able to reach out to the major stakeholders in the market, present solutions to them which are viable and generate interest. And that's how we are able to also be there at the forefront of any new thing that is happening. So DHL at that time when this whole thing started was at the right position at the right time. And we were able to generate business and interest in the market very fast, which has also stood us in good stead all these years because we are recognized in the market by everyone as someone who is in full support of this, not just because of a simple business interest today, but also we know that in the future this is something which is going to stay, something which is going to be a viable alternative to the traditional modes of transport. And this is of great interest to everybody in the market now. I'll give an example. Sea rail is not the only thing which is interesting people today. There is a great interest from Southeast Asia into this. There are a lot of countries which are looking at connecting via China by road. They come from, let's say, Vietnam by road and then connect by rail from China to Europe. So this some years back would have been totally inconceivable. People would have never thought of taking this route. But now they are more and more interested, more people are saying, oh, this we never thought about. And DHL, obviously, the moment this kind of discussion begins, we say, oh, we already have a solution, we are working on it already. So it generates a lot of confidence also in the stakeholders, in the market, in the customers. And it's easy for us that way to be at the forefront all the time.
And on the basis of that, do you think the New Silk Road is too big to fail?
Failure is not an option, actually. That's my very honest viewpoint about this. It's not because of the amount of money which has been pumped into it already. It's not because of the time that a lot of organizations have spent on it. But for one simple reason, and that is a vision, collective vision of all the governments involved in this. What started off as one man's vision is now a collective vision being shared by the heads of state all over. You have examples of presidents and prime ministers going to receive trains, going to flag off trains. Nobody would spend so much of energy on this if they did not believe in this. So that for me is one major reason why this option of failure does not even exist for this.
And if I may push you a little bit further on that point, the Belt and Road Initiative, or if we call it the New Silk Road, focuses on east-west connections.
Right.
What is DHL doing to foster north-south connections? Of course, India is a significant growth area, as is Russia. Is this somewhere where you're looking to?
Yes, it's just not India, but we are looking at other countries also in that region, part of Asia, you could say. One example is Myanmar. There is a lot of interest for that market as well, because Myanmar traditionally has limited ocean freight capacity and air freight capacity as well. And that is where this multimodal route opens up a totally new paradigm of shipping your cargo. So we are already doing a lot of research and a lot of work on this, on how do we connect this. Another interesting option is Nepal. Now Nepal, people would say, oh, there is the Himalayas in between, how do you reach over there? But there is a route available, and there is interest from both sides, from the Chinese and Nepalese government, on developing this route as well. Not just by rail, but also by road today, because both the options should be available. And Nepal, as you know, has the only gateway it has is via India, the ocean freight route. So they are looking at this definitely with a lot of interest, and we do have a presence in Nepal of our own. We do have business that we do. So this is something that we are actively working on today. Another interesting area is Pakistan. Pakistan, now we know that there is a rail line which is running through Pakistan all the way down to the southern port of Gwadar. So there is a lot of interest over there as well, but it's going to take some time to be ready. We know that even though we have a lot of push from the government level and also from an infrastructure level of development, but it will take time. Another interesting area developing is Iran. Recently there was a train which was trialed to Iran. It worked fine, and there is interest in this corridor as well. But last but not the least on this part, Turkey is a very interesting market. And Turkey, we are the only ones in the market who have been running services to Turkey for a long time now. We are shipping a lot of containers over there on a regular basis, and Turkey definitely has huge potential. Especially Turkey has a very high export market from China.
And the new Silk Road was initially envisioned at least from where we are now, China, Beijing, a couple of 100 kilometers north of here. What different perspective do you think it gives you on this initiative or on this program being based in China as opposed to your colleagues in Europe?
There is definitely a difference in, I would say, how the vision is perceived. Here in China, if you're here, you know that there is a lot of clarity in the vision. Everything is very clearly specified and charted out how you would go ahead. In Europe sometimes, because of the multiple countries involved and the, you could say, smaller interests at stake in comparison to one China, that could somehow maybe not in sync sometimes, but we have seen in the last 2 years especially, there has been a lot of improvement in how this Belt and Road Initiative is perceived in Europe. And there is leadership in Europe now dealing with this. We have the German Chancellor taking active interest in this. We have the French government now, President now taking active interest in this. I mean, you look at any country, the Austrian Chancellor, he comes over to China, talks about it. So the moment you see that the senior leadership on country level is supporting this, then the whole perception starts changing as well. And that's what we are seeing now in the last 2 years especially.
And you've spoken eloquently on how business leaders, political leaders, and a variety of other players have got a real zeal for this initiative. Why do you not think that these overland solutions were things that weren't explored earlier, given the excitement over it now?
I think human beings have a tendency to remain in a bubble where they feel that they are safe. For thousands of years we have shipped by ocean. We are happy. We don't want to explore something. No, it's safe. it works to a certain extent. I think this is the best for me. What is the best I can do now? I can have airplanes to connect China with Europe. Okay, what is next? I think rail is not such a great option. So this kind of tendency where we limit our vision, where we limit our ideas, this is the main thing. But now I'm glad that somebody took the initiative to make this whole thing possible. What started off as just an idea is now a reality. We have thousands of containers being moved between China and Europe by rail now. And it has not just focused on Europe, but it has focused on Central Asia as well. These countries were always dependent on other routings from various different countries. And they never had a set, reliable mode of logistics. But now since this Belt and Road Initiative took off, now there is huge amount of business moving through this combination of rail and road also to these countries.
Do you have some figures on this amount of business that you would be happy to share with us?
These statistics, I'm not really sure. We don't have access to them. Not really. Not
to worry at all. Of course, DHL was one of the earliest players in the new Silk Road. Mm-hmm. Increasingly, as it's progressed, other international logistics companies have jumped on the bandwagon. How are you dealing with this competition or increasing competition?
Competition is a part of life, really. Any progressive economy, if you're part of it, competition will always be there. And we at DHL, we welcome healthy competition. It is something that we like because it always urges us to develop something more. And like I said earlier, we want to be at the forefront of any development in the market. We want to be a market pioneer and leader in whatever we do. We can only be a leader if there is competition. So if there's no competition, there's no point. So we like it and we welcome it. And the more players there are in the market, the more it urges for the market to come up with innovative solutions. Because more brains are at it. And that's what we like.
And on the discussion of innovative solutions, greening the Silk Road, promoting environmentally friendly options is important to this program. What is DHL doing to green the Silk Road?
A lot of initiatives. I'll talk about a couple of them. One of them is, we call it a carbon calculator. Right. So we've got an online tool that we promote to our customers to show them the impact of shipping by this mode of transport in comparison to, let's say, air freight. Mm-hmm. Or there are companies which have been just doing land freight all across huge geographical distances. So we try to present them these multimodal scenarios and show them how beneficial it is for the environment. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of conscious people in the world now who want this, who want to understand this. So this is number one that we are doing. Apart from that, we are also talking actively with our customers, trying to talk to them just not through this green calculator, but also trying to show them that, look, if you use a multimodal way of transport, it is also helping you in your business in terms of cutting down cost. I'll give you an example in this relation. A lot of companies are used to shipping lightweight cargo by air without realizing that how much of damage it does to the environment. But when we bring in rail freight or multimodal, it gives them the option to do it in a different way. The only reason these companies were shipping by air because they thought ocean was too long and the only option is air. But now we introduce them to multimodal or rail freight and they realize that, the world is not so problematic anymore and we can ship through rail in lesser transit time than ocean, but also we can have an environmental impact also by not shipping so much by air. So this is something that we try to do consciously with our customers by making them aware of the result of their actions.
Would you be happy to mention any of the customers that you have here based in China using these overland solutions?
Actually, a lot of them, but I don't think I can mention the names without taking their approvals. But yes, we have a very large customer base, and there are a lot of customers who are joining the multimodal bandwagon every day. More and more interest is there in the market today. More and more people are, they just want to experience this new thing now. It's no longer a fashion anymore, like it was 3 years back to talk about that I'm shipping by rail, but now it has become more of a necessity.
Okay, well, for any client using overland solutions, that they want end-to-end solutions, they want a comprehensive strategy from getting their cargo from A to B. With overland solutions, you're incorporating many different players: Kazakhstan, Russia, Belarus, Poland, if you're using the middle corridor, even more through Central Asia. How easy is it to provide these end-to-end solutions with the number of countries and players that you have to operate within, and all the different regulations and requirements between them?
In terms of regulations, especially related with customs, there is some work to be done. We still do not have a system wherein the customs processes are standardized between all these countries. But beyond that, it's just not even customs practices. You look at the type of gauge of rail, that also is different between China and the Central Asian countries and in Europe as well. So there is a strain on infrastructure as well, because you have to change the wagons, you have to change the locomotives. That leads to a bit of time being spent on the borders. And apart from that, the customs regulations, coming back to them, they also make it a bit complex in terms of understanding of HS codes, in terms of understanding of customs requirements. So we still have a long way to go, I would say, before all these things are done. But I guess the moment there is a political leadership clarity on this and agreement on this, this will all fall into place. But it's easier said than done, I understand, because it's very complex and it takes time.
Well, anything worth doing is hard.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And we have to be wary of the fact that this is all new. Imagine now people talk about air freight, for example, having very nice standardized processes all over the world. They have an ITA book to refer to. But yes, it has taken them 100 years to be here. And this business is just 5-6 years old. So it's getting there.
And mentioning that when you're shipping overland, you have to deal with the climatic variations that these distances pose. How is DHL helping to deal with these?
We have very active variety of solutions to deal with this. One of them is providing refrigerated containers, reefers as they are known. So whenever there is a cargo requirement to maintain temperature or humidity along the way, we do bring about these reefer solutions to our customers. In addition to that, there are customers who have very strict requirements for maintaining a certain level of humidity and temperature. So we have devices, GPS devices, which can measure the temperature and humidity levels all along, and also make them available online at any point of time. So there is a constant interface available online with these devices to have a look. We have supplies of desiccants to control humidity within the containers during transit. We have solutions for thermal blankets that can control the temperature variances during transit. So there is a long list of solutions that can be developed and provided to the customers depending on what nature of cargo is there.
And whilst these solutions give option, they also come with expense, and this has led some critics to question the underlying value proposition of overland freightage. Mm-hmm. Is this something you agree with?
Cost is always, it depends on how you perceive it. For example, a luxurious item at a very high price, somebody may be absolutely comfortable with, and someone may not. This mode of transport now is being considered in a different light altogether. There are various type of factors related with it. For example, if somebody is shipping some traditional temperature sensitive cargo by ocean using a reefer, the big problem they have is how do they get a consistent supply of reefers? How do they take care of capacity on the ships? How do they take care of the transfers between their warehouses and the ports? And sometimes, ports are congested. We have seen so many pictures of a long queue of trailers outside the ports just trying to get in. This mode does not offer those challenges. You don't have that problem of capacity. You don't have that problem of queuing up to get into the terminal. So all in all, it provides a better sense of security for your cargo. And also the fact, if I mentioned about GPS devices, when you put GPS devices on a reefer on sea, there is very little chance of it communicating with the satellite. Whereas on the on the rail and road network, when you are there is always a mobile tower nearby. So at any point of time, you have access to understand what condition your cargo is in. And if something goes wrong, you can take evasive action. In comparison to being on a ship in the middle of nowhere, if something is wrong, you are just praying to God and the master of the vessel to take any possible step to take care of your cargo.
So do you think the increase in overland, particularly rail freightage, is opening up a new market, or do you think it's taking away the market from the sea, the maritime routes, or the air freights? How does it fit into this spectrum?
Look, the market is growing consistently and at a very good pace. One factor, you can easily see the Chinese economy is still growing very healthy. The numbers are very good. There is a huge increase in the middle class in China as well, which means that there is a ever higher increase in demand from the middle class market. There is a huge demand for foreign products as well now, because disposable income is growing. Ocean freight market is too huge for rail freight or multimodal to dent the capacities over there. They have their own issues. Every year we hear about shipping line stories battling through capacities and supplies. Rail freight so far does not have that problem. The demand and capacity supply are always in sync so far we've seen. And then the growing infrastructure, the growing demand will always be there to sustain this business in the coming years. And that's where the vision plays a very important part. As long as people know that how this market is growing, where is it going, it's always good to plan in advance.
And do you have a favorite corridor, an overland corridor? Where do you put your eggs? Do you put them on the route through Russia, across the Caspian, through Iran?
We have every day we come up with new things. One example I can give you is we have now rail connections between China and Vietnam. Earlier on in the past, nobody even thought of it, even though it was but a natural thing to do. But for one of our customers, we recently implemented a very nice multimodal way of business, wherein I will go back to the reference you made to Caspian Sea. So we go across China by road. There are huge machines that we are transporting. At the Chinese border, we transfer the machines onto rail wagons. We go to the port of Aktau, where we put them on a ferry, cross the Caspian, go across, and then again we put it on the rail terminal to another rail terminal, from where we do a final mile delivery by road. That for me is a very interesting combination of different modes of transport, because not only is it complex, but it has its own set of demands in customs and infrastructure arrangements and so on. For example, when the cargo reaches by road to the Chinese border, you have to make sure that there are trains waiting for your cargo. So it has to work in clockwork. When the cargo reaches Caspian Seaport, then you must make sure that there is a ferry waiting for it, and so on. So it's a perfect model of logistics to apply. And how it has helped our customer is by cutting down on transit time by a great margin. They were using the traditional overland road transport network, which was just not working because of the limitation of number of trucks that you can find for traversing such great distances.
And I don't know exactly where DHL crosses into Kazakhstan, but is it Horgos Gateway? Is that the...
There are two entry points. One is Khorgos and another one is Alashanko.
And Would you be happy to discuss a little bit more about Horgos and DHL's role in it? It has been highlighted as one of the sort of flagship projects of the New Silk Road.
Yes, this interesting mode of business that I spoke about, actually we are doing via Horgos. And we have adequate infrastructural arrangements over there to receive these trucks, these big machines by road, and then transfer them, arrange the customs clearance, move over to the Kazakh side, and then reload them on wagons and then organize the customs clearance there as well. So it's something that we are doing on a regular basis, and we have a very strong relationship at Horgos with the free port, with the dry port over there, and also with the Kazakh government to facilitate all these activities.
And do you see the Belt and Road Initiative, or I should say the New Silk Road, as something which is Chinese or international?
It's absolutely international now. The interest is just not limited to Chinese companies to support it. There are companies which are multinational in nature, which are European in mindset or outlook. All of them are absolutely aware now of the benefits that the Belt and Road Initiative brings about. And there are some companies which are now actively pursuing methods and means with the Chinese government and in their local governments as well to ascertain how can they be a bigger part of this whole initiative. Everyone understands that if you are part of this today, when it is developing, you would be in a better situation when it develops fully.
And in Shanghai and also in China, how do you think perceptions and public awareness have developed about this New Silk Road in the last 5 years since its inception?
There is a lot of awareness now. There was recently an exhibition in Shanghai which I attended. Interestingly for me, there was another exhibition next door which was related with food. And I found a lot of people who wandered over from the food section into the international logistics section. And they were all very interested to see what was going on in the Belt and Road Initiative. There were a lot of people I saw over there who had bags of food, but they wanted to understand what's going on. And everyone mentioned this, whoever I spoke to casually mentioned the same thing, that they were very interested to see what's going on. So it's just not from a commercial point of view, but from a normal person on the street point of view as well, that they are taking a lot of interest in this. And the other important thing about this is that they see this engine driving their economy. They know that this Belt and Road Initiative and all the countries associated with it are going to be their future partners of big business tomorrow. We just don't look at what's happening with the European countries, but also with Central Asian countries. You look at the African countries as well, which are part of this. So everybody is more and more excited.
And could you highlight what you think is a potential pitfall or challenge of the Belt and Road Initiative in the coming 5 years?
The biggest challenge, I guess, would come along from the other countries may or may not be able to keep pace with the growth that China is driving. China is going very fast on this, and they can. But the other countries may or may not be able to keep up. And that's where the big challenge will come from, in my opinion.
And if you were to summarize the Belt and Road Initiative in both one word and one image, what would those be to you? And take time to think about it if you would like.
Okay, one word. It's 3 words actually, right? Belt and Road Initiative, but one word I can describe it as future. This is what it is going to be. In terms of visualization, again, I mean, we've seen so many science fiction movies all along, and a lot of things that we see in these movies, at one point of time we think that this is just somebody's figment of imagination, but then it comes true in real life as well. This is something like that. 10 years back, nobody would have thought that there would be so much of volume of traffic on the Belt and Road lane, but now it's happening today. So it's no longer fiction.
And then following on from that, what image would you use to in capture the Belt and Road Initiative?
Yeah, that's my image. It's the future. It's that's what it is. I mean, I look at it and I see the future.
Well, it looks like a good future.
Exactly, it does, absolutely, and I'm very excited to be part of it.